Good evening. I'll call the October 23rd Cedar Springs Public School Board meeting to order. It is now actually 6:16. So with that, if you would rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Secretary Slager, if we can have a roll call, please. And we do have Treasurer Gilmore running late.
Okay. Trustee Bowser. Here. Trustee Patton. Here. Trustee Vanderhyde.
Here.
Treasurer Gilmore excused for now. Secretary Slager here. Vice President Schaffner.
Here.
And President Reed.
Here. Thank you. And we have established a quorum for tonight's meeting. That moves us to the adoption of the agenda. And I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support.
The only discussion piece I would have would be do we want to add now if we need action on the OK conference? We can always rescind it if our discussion leads us in another direction. But if we amend the agenda now, we don't have to amend it during.
I would say that's what we hear the conversation.
Okay.
First,
fine.
but it doesn't
Okay.
matter.
All right, that's right. Okay. Okay, so as presented, I'll call vote. Vice President Schaffner.
Yes.
Secretary Slager.
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore. It's not here, sorry. Trustee Vanderhyde.
Yes.
Trustee Patton.
Yes.
Trustee Bowser.
Yes.
President Reed. Yes, the agenda is adopted as presented. And that brings us to gratitudes, and I will open up the tables for that.
I'll start, for our last football game this past Friday. I got a lot of compliments, one mainly being from Bill Simonson. His kiddo plays, Forest Hills Eastern, and just said that our kids are a class act along with our coach. So it was really nice hearing that feedback. So we do have good kids.
I'm grateful for the staff in the audience joining us tonight on a day that you weren't working. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you.
What's your fall break?
Yeah.
I just was gonna I've said this in the past too, but I'm just grateful for the communication that we receive, just thinking as a parent, putting my parent hat on, just communication from the different buildings and principals. I just feel like the flow has been good, consistent, just enough in the newsletters. So have just very much appreciated hearing those highlights and being informed of what's going on.
Yeah, I'm grateful that our staff, other than these three individuals, have had an opportunity to take a deep breath over the last couple of days. And it's well deserved. They've worked incredibly hard in the first portion of the school year. And now we have a power push to Thanksgiving, and we're headed in the right direction. So it's a good opportunity to rejuvenate the spirit a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Move on to our consent items, and I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support. Vice President Schaffner.
Yes.
Secretary Slager.
Yes.
Trustee Vanderhyde.
Yes.
Trustee Patton.
Yes.
Trustee Bowser.
Yes.
President Reed. Yes, the consent items are approved as presented. That moves us into the discussion portion of tonight's meeting. And first up, we have new high school course proposals with Mr. Simmons.
I'd like to render the floor to my teammates here, if possible.
That would be fine.
Yeah. So Matt Nabazi is here with the band. So if you would like to kick off, please.
Drum roll.
Yeah.
Drum
Yes, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Both as a percussionist and the class that I'm gonna teach. So, for percussion ensemble, in the concert band world, which for us goes from November to the end of school in June, is after marching band season. There's not a consistently high quality of percussion education happening. Mainly because the music that we select for the band, while it is good for the wind players, it doesn't always meet their challenges or their needs as the percussionist, the playing the drums or the mallets or whatever they may be playing. So with this class, we would take all of those students and put them in their own, basically their own band for just percussion. And they would be able to play music that would challenge them, would grow them, would help them in the concert, when they rejoin the concert bands for concerts, would help them when they're on the field for marching band. They would, for the winter semester, that would be their band class. We wouldn't ask them to enroll in percussion ensemble and a concert band. And then they would still fall under the umbrella of a Cedar Springs band member, so they would still have all the same requirements and expectations that every band member has. So they perform at all the concerts that we host, they perform at band festival, any additional opportunities they would be a part of. They would just have a class that can help them specifically instead of, they may get a piece that like, hey, it has a lot of stuff, or they may get a piece that has virtually nothing. So that is the class that I am proposing, is a class just for the percussionists to keep them engaged. They'll have more fun and it will grow them as musicians and as people.
Did you bring that to the students at all? Like, do you have any idea of how much interest there is in that?
Yes, I phrase it to the students as basically it's a continuation of drumline, because they all like marching band, because marching band offers a lot of those like really challenging parts. If you've caught our marching band show this season, they're always playing and they're playing some really hard stuff and achieving that at a high level. So for them to continue that basically now in an indoor setting, they're all excited for that.
I'm just curious, I'm not worried about it, but how does that work with staffing? Like, what does that look like, just so we know?
It would essentially be one of myself or Colin Weber would teach this class in conjunction, and then we'd have to navigate where we get our preps in and where what bands we get, but basically we would be the ones, one of us would be the ones that cheer.
Okay, good.
And if we got a pickle, potentially we could offer it as an overage, so paying an extra, percentage. There are times when that's the only way we can make some of these singleton classes work. And obviously that's at the discretion of the teacher as well. We really try to find win-win solutions in those instances. I did have a little question, if I can. Sure. Do you ever foresee an 8th grader being able to play at a level that they might be able to engage in this level of learning as well? And then we would shuttle them over to the high school for that type of.
I could definitely see that being possible, yes, because I know they would, especially at that level, they would really appreciate that. Right now, because we coach each of us up, we're unfortunate to be able to pull our 7th grade percussionists out and do something usually on a weekly basis, and they look forward to that every week. They're always asking, like, can we add more time? Can we add more time? And like, well, we have other things we have to do. We can't just, but they're excited about that time that they could spend working on stuff specifically for them.
Thank you. If we vote to implement this, would it start this year or next?
It would start so it would start winter of 2025.
And just for clarification, so the board acts to approve courses that are then placed in the catalog. It doesn't necessarily mean that a class would run. The actual placement of the class on the master schedule is based solely on student requests. So if we only had 7 students that requested this class, it may not be the case that we can run. But it's still in the catalog as an approved offering. Maybe next year we have 23 students who want to take it. So
I know currently we offer jazz band in the catalog, but it's not offered in the daily schedule because I think it's more of like post COVID and it just there hasn't been enough interest or push to get it back in.
Yeah.
But I do know that's something we offered, that was something I introduced last year and they're like, oh, it's already in the catalog, you don't need to
Yeah.
reintroduce it, so.
Thank you.
So a question on, like, the overlap, you said this would be a separate class from,
So these for the 20, like currently we have 20 professionals.
okay,
They would take in the winter semester, that would be their band class. And then the concert bands that we currently offer would house the winds as a daily offering. And then we would work with the students on when we can integrate them, like for concerts, putting them back in like their spots for winds, for the wind portion of the concert. So we're not ignoring their pieces, but a lot of times that stuff they can learn in like a week. And then we just do one rehearsal together, put it together. There's the product.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't have any questions, but I like that it's giving the students more opportunity to work on those skills specifically and less downtime for them, really, or potentially having more pieces with parts for them, so.
And it's during the school day, it's less
Yeah.
evenings too, so that's kind of a benefit. We can do other things too. I like it, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is society and culture through film and media.
Yeah, I'm not presenting a percussion class, that's for sure. This is the second I've been on the board for like the last 2 months, it's interesting. Yeah, society and culture through film and media, so this has been on my mind for probably the last 5 years. And I missed the deadline last year to get in the book, so I don't wanna miss that this time, so I try to get it in and squeeze it in. It's a conglomeration of a lot of stuff, and I don't know a lot of answers on some things too, on cross-listing or things like that. My minor is a psychology degree, so I do psychology and sociology style stuff, which I think relates to a lot of those things. But the course specifically of society and culture through film and media is a multifaceted concept, that happens throughout the course. Number one, we're gonna keep striking media literacy in there more and more. We can dedicate more time to that aspect to it, of kids being able to try to discern real versus fake things in the media integrated, whether it's advertisements, commercials, music videos, things like that. That's a big component of the course. And the other component is really going to be guided by sort of the final exam aspect of it. And the bits and pieces aren't all put together yet because I don't want to dive in crazy hard and get everything planned and then be like, we're not going to run it. You know what I mean? But the final exam question, and I was talking to Chris Panner, who teaches our AP research, who's phenomenal at what he does, by the way. With him, and my final exam question that I posed to him, he's like, that's one of our research topics that we try to push every year for those things. And the final project presentation, whatever through the course is does society and culture influence what we see in the media? Or is what we see in the media reflected in society and culture? They've got to pick one of those stances. And my idea for the final exam component of that would be breaking down the information, doing research, doing data collection, but it'll be a presentation at the end with in media as well, like a multimedia sort of presentation, just to sort of guide us through that thought process. I think when you look at everything out there nowadays, there's so many different topics that you see in film and media. When I say media, by the way, that's anything on your cell phone, that's advertisements, social medias, billboards, magazines, posters, whatever. Film and TV shows will be there as well. But there's so much stuff out there that reflects our society in a whole. You can look at comparisons and bits and pieces of it too, because there's a huge debate topic that I talked about. If you looked at the list of things on there, there's a movie called Super Size Me, which is done by Morgan Spurlock. Which if you do the research behind that or look at it, I mean, he basically presents the fact 30 days of fast food, but what you're missing is the story that he was battling alcoholism at the same time and doing all that, which you can do the research on. But then there's a flip side version of that. I think it's called Fathead, is the name of the title, which is a comedian that did the opposite, that did the 30-day diet and lost weight and got fitter. So it's how it's presented and how it's controlled and how we have to look at it. And like I said 2 months ago, our society is bombarded with media and film and culture stuff all over. Whether it's social media, billboards, books, whatever. And we've got to do a really good job of presenting that information so kids understand what they're looking at and breaking it down even more. The statistics have even risen probably in the last 2 months that I've been here. I think before it was 94% kids have access to cell phones, and now it's about 96%. Is the latest data and research that I've seen. So it's out there all the time. And I still think we need to do a better job of preparing our kids for that aspect of culture and society. You can use things all the time in pop culture and how it reflects things. I mean, if you're a football fan, feel free to dive into the Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift relationship. I mean, that's all over media, and that's how it dictates society. I mean, there's been a 400% increase in Travis Kelce's sales of his jerseys after that. That's not a coincidence. We got to do a better job of that. And I do think in the future, it'd be great to see media literacy stuff taught at a younger age group too, rather than when they get to the high school level. We provide our kids with a one-to-one basis, and I think we need to do a really good job of educating kids on what is proper, what's right, what's wrong, what is factual, what is made up, and do those things. And it's a sort of passion of mine to do that. Ideally, I would love to see the course like cost listed. I don't know if that's a possibility or what we do, like cost listed to get in college. It counts either this department or this department, but I don't know if that's a possibility. That's above my pay grade. Thanks. But I just think that by looking at film and media and breaking it down for kids, it is a way for us to even analyze it more. It makes it more pop relevant. And realistically, pop culture is more influential than probably my job as a career. You know, so we've got to do a good job of that. I put a whole bunch of like selected movies on there that you can break things down. From 42 about Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in baseball, to Blackfish, I think I put on there, which is the SeaWorld documentary style. Ken Burns is a guy that does a whole bunch of documentary films across a whole wide spectrum of things, from baseball to national parks. We can pull a lot of references that are contemporary and relevant and engaging. Ideally, it could be 1 week of us be breaking things down in a movie, like watching it and then seeing what your reference is and what you're pulling out of it. It could be a lot of, I envision a lot of discussion, which is why I did not include freshmen on that list. It'd be open to sophomores, juniors, and seniors. But I think that's a nutshell of it. When we go forward with it, then we have way more stuff. I get there's a sample syllabus I think you guys should have in there, viewing lists and all that stuff as well. What questions may you have?
I do have a question in regards to, back when I was at Fox 17, we had a triple check and you'd have both sides of the story before you could do a full package.
Yeah.
It's no longer that way.
No.
So are you going to touch on that in just the responsibility and factual information before?
We touch on that right now in the Medium 1 class, or Introduction to Television Video Media.
Okay.
I teach it's about an 8 to 9 day unit on media literacy,
Okay.
breaking that stuff down. And we look at a whole bunch of things, and unfortunately what you said back in the day when you had to triple check everything, that is long gone. Because we, as a society and culture, are instant producers of media. You grab your phone, you throw something out, you film it, and out there, away it goes. And the credibility is out the window. One of the videos I show in that class is Sinclair Media Group. Is one of the largest media groups in the company. I'm not sure they were Fox 17 back in the day.
We were Tribune.
Because Sinclair owns Fox stations, ABC stations, and NBC stations, which are three different parent entities, but one company owns them. And there's a video we show, or that I show every year, which is basically a screen like this broken up into, I don't know, conservatively 30 different news stations under their market, reading the exact same message at exactly the same time. And it doesn't matter if it's Fox or ABC, or you're getting, it's all construed messages. And we've got to do our part of that stuff.
I think it's,
Whoa.
yes. I think it's a fabulous idea, with many parents being concerned about the books that the students are reading.
Yeah.
How do you anticipate kind of navigating that, where some parents might not want their kids to see certain movies or certain news clips or whatever?
Yeah, the format I found in most of the formats I found are upper level high schools, like high producing high schools and freshman intro college classes is where most of it's come from. A lot of it in there is permission based. I know our film policy is anything that's PG-13, has to have a parent sign off, da, da, da. My plan would be at the start of the semester, here's my stuff. Here's all the stuff. It goes home, has to come back signed, or you have to, if you have something that you don't want your kid to be a part of, like let's say you've got eight things this semester, and you say, well, I don't want to be a part of number 7. Then it's my duty to find something that's relative to that and applicable at the same time, to make sure it fits that demographic. And then for those days that we're doing that stuff, we have to find a way to do it, you know? And I know in the spot that you guys are in and that stuff is chaos, for lack of better terminology. So I think the best I can do is to inform, this is what we're gonna do, here's the reasoning behind it. If you have any questions, here's my contact information. If you haven't, and I would like to have, like, if it is an opt-out policy, like if I opt out of that one, I would like to have a conversation as best, because I think communication, especially face-to-face communication, is so much more invaluable than an email. You know what I mean? And I think I would anticipate being challenged on some things, which I'm fully fine with.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I just love that it encourages the critical thinking, you know, to not just consume media and just take it in, but to actually stop and pause and think through it and discuss it. And I just see a very huge need for that. So,
And my big thing is too, I tell my kids in my class, if you know my political views or my religious views, I'm not doing my job well enough. You know what I mean? Because my job is just to present the facts of what the information is out there. You can decide for yourself what you want to believe. Well, we have to discern if it's factual or not. Like you really can't deny that part of it, you know, because there's so much stuff out there with interpretation. Like, and I love pop culture and pop media that does that. I think I could teach a whole lesson on Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town. You know what I mean? But if you listen to it from every side of the perspectives, you can take very different messages from that, or actually probably way more than 2. If that makes any sense. And I think using relevant stuff that's current is more engaging.
Thank you for bringing this
Yeah.
course. I
like the idea.
You gotta listen to me one more time real quick, right?
Okay.
The class we're running that we decided to change the name and add media to on in September, we're running with like 12 kids right now, which is lower than we wanted to. I've got kids that are asking to be a part of it now, because we just went on a whim. And I want to give kudos to Mr. Smith for helping that out, but I want to give big kudos to Amy McCarthy, our communication specialist for our districts. She comes down once a week. She's in my room once a week for the entire class period, usually on Thursdays, working with my kids. And we've partnered with her a little bit through a social media app, or social media publishing thing called Buffer. Which if you know Hootsuite or anything like that, Hootsuite's more money, like crazy money. Buffer's not. But myself, Amy, I've worked hand in hand on getting Buffer involved. Our kids are on our team. They can put things in there for approval. Our class Instagram is See Out There Half Nation, which they developed the name for it, and we took and ran with it a little bit more. That stuff all that stuff goes on there and is relevant to high school students for the most part. It's Instagram based. But then my kids have the ability to create things for a high school Facebook page. We're in the process of revamping the cover page of that and starting getting more stuff on that right now. And then they have aspects to be able to promote and send things into Buffer for approval from Amy and myself to on our district page. So if you saw anything about Count Day, that was the Count Day pictures in our social media on our district was created by a junior in our high school, but Austin Alcombrett. He created all those. We've got all kinds of stuff going from that class, and I think that you're seeing relevant stuff pop up, and it's our viewership has gone way up. And look at the analytics is sort of fun to see how we're grabbing things and doing stuff. From everything from stat spotlights to there will be a piece that we're for the election, just like not persuading voting because that's a no-no. But following the legality aspect of that too, and we're following our brands that you guys set up in Canva as well, with the right colors and everything we're doing those things. So we're teaching kids relevant stuff, and the kids that I have in that class now have all within, what are we, 7 weeks in? All kids out of that class right now are gonna have a digital portfolio they can use to go get a job. So thanks for that. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
FFA, you're in.
All right. High school agricultural science course.
Thank you.
Is it just a quick aside, as coach is leaving and Mr. N hopefully is leaving. Just want to thank these guys for giving up their evening for us to change our best for our kids. The common theme that I hope you're hearing with all these new course proposals is relevancy, timeliness. Mr. Busen and Mr. Plain and Mrs. Haberling are working together to start an adulting 101 course that you're gonna hear about in the near future. All these courses bring so much more relevancy to our kids' lives, where every kid can connect, because every kid needs to become an adult. I mean, we could all agree on that. And most of our kids, 96% of them, as data shows, have a phone, and they need to know how to navigate the digital waters with safety, lest they drown or get harpooned, pun intended. I just am so excited about the way our professionals are seeking to change our best in course offerings, so that it's not, I've got to go to school, but rather I get to. And those kids that are in that 6-hour digital marketing course with coach, they get to go to that hour, because they are driving our narrative for our district. You know what I mean? As we see what our enrollment numbers are, they are going to be a huge cog in the wheel of solution to grow that, because they're going to shine a light on the champion things that are happening throughout this district. So quick aside. Thank you both for giving up your night. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
My purpose in being here is regarding the name change for Mr. Willett's course. This will be ultra brief, because I have very little knowledge about ag education. What I can tell you is our why behind our what is to create a course name that better reflects the content. So what the name of the course has been, and I think you're aware of this, is animal science. What we are proposing is that we change the name of the course to livestock and companion animal science. Period.
Yes, I have a question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on to the overnight field trip request, second read, and I believe it's on for action tonight.
It is. Again, these trips are trips that are reoccurring. They're annual trips. Just wondering if you have any questions. There's no variations from the past in terms of how we are going to approach either of these trips for the upcoming school year.
Question? Okay, we'll look for that in action. Thank you. Alrighty, then, discussion item C, Region Emergency Response Safety Coordinator update with Mr. John Witkowski.
So joining us tonight is John Witkowski. John joined our team in early September, and he serves Region 1 as our Emergency Response Safety Coordinator. And I was just tickled to see all of the work that's been done in just a really short period of time. And so I asked John to come in and just share a little bit of his insight that he's gathered so far, but also to give you an opportunity to ask him questions. This is a unique position. I don't know of any other group of Board of Educations that are supported by a position like this. And so I thought it might be fun for you to put some questions in the air to see if you have anything that you're curious about in terms of what his vision is for the role, how he sees it really supporting not just the students in Cedar Springs, but the students in Kent City and Sparta and Kennewa and, in the region. So I'll turn it over to John. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, board, for allowing me to present today. I'm just a little worried why that fire extinguisher is there. Maybe that's to get me out of here.
No, it is a non-lethal deterrent in the event of a hostile, party in the audience. So
I first want to say, just a statement I heard Mr. Simmons make. Connection. Our students need connection. The most recent climate survey showed that high school students in particular feel a lack of connection.
and to offer courses that are not only relevant, certainly educational, but provide connection between young people and instructors. It's not only invaluable, but it also leads into my topic, and that's safety and security, because kids that are connected, kids that are learning, kids that want to go to school are not going to get into trouble. They're not going to engage in nefarious activity, typically. Kids are kids, they'll misbehave, but that connection is hugely important. And I just applaud all the effort here at Cedars and all the other schools in the region that really try their darndest to ensure that kids are not only educated, but they're receiving content that is applicable to not only their daily lives, but to their future. So again, I'm John Wachowski. This position that I was lucky enough to be hired into is new, as Mr. Smith stated. My responsibility is Region 1, which again is basically the schools in the north here, north and west. I've been on the job for about a month and a half. I just recently retired from the Grand Rapids Police Department after a 28-year career, working in various aspects of law enforcement. I do have quite a bit of experience with education, working in schools in the Grand Rapids area. I'm an adjunct instructor at Grand Valley, so I work with older kids, work in the police academy instructors. So, and I have 4 kids in mind, so I feel like I'm well positioned to provide safety and security for this region. Some of my roles and responsibilities are first and foremost to develop a level of continuity and consistency in the way we do things here in the region. So whether that's emergency operations plans, reunification sites, ensuring that our staff is adequately trained in the event we have some sort of a hazard or an act of violence, ensuring that our safety and security directors or those that are responsible for the day-to-day efforts are working together in concert and ensuring that they're being a part of the role of safety and security in our schools. Also working on issues such as access control, cameras, ensuring that in the event of a lockdown, our law enforcement officers can get into buildings. This position is not only unique, as Mr. Smith has stated, but it's hopefully can be replicated in the other regions in Kent County and the ISD. Additionally, I'm basically making my way through all the districts, just meeting people. I was lucky enough to come here for a tabletop exercise last month that went over a MERT scenario. I must say the staff did an excellent job. It was facilitated by myself and Deputy Price. Stacy involved as well. Russell Bray and I are doing building and site assessments. So that's also part of my role, is to ensure that your vulnerability assessments are done periodically to ensure that this is not only a requirement from the state, but also to ensure that anything that needs to be addressed, whether it is regarding access control, door numbering, all of those things are taken care of. So we did the high school last week, as well as Mr. Patello's building, and then we're back at it on Wednesday to finish the rest of the district up. So again, as Mr. Smith stated, this is a new position, so wherever I can fill a role, wherever I can be a resource, I welcome that. I know there was an issue with a family and a number of lockdown drills. Talking through to parents and families to ensure that their kids are safe, but they're not stressed, and they don't have to deal with the anxiety of having these lockdown drills affect them emotionally, psychologically. So I very much appreciate your time, and if there are any questions or comments. No?
I think I'm just curious with the position being new, obviously, I mean, there was a vision for the position and we really had consensus that it was an awesome opportunity and we were on board. to launch it, but I'm just curious if now that you're in it, are there things that you see that maybe need to be tweaked or addressed that weren't in that initial plan?
Not, what, the biggest issue that I have seen is, language and ensuring that there's some commonality in the way, we address safety and security, not only district-wide, building to building, but certainly. You always want to use best practice, you always want to use evidence-based solutions and ideas. And right now, it's kind of all over the board. And that makes a little bit of sense to me. You know, a Rockford is definitely gonna be different than a Kansas City. Absolutely, there's more students, resources. So, you know, bringing up everybody, so we not only have commonality, but we have somewhat of a level playing field. So if I go to a football game in Cedar Springs, it's gonna be somewhat similar to a football game in Kent City with regards to safety and security. So just speaking that common language, the state is continually changing things, so they want a emergency preparedness template in place by next fall. So that will help out a lot because the preparedness plans are starkly different. I mean, you've got all hazards in there, but the way they're written is all across the board. So having that continuity is hugely important. Drills. So your lockdown drills, your fire drills, all important. But I think from what I've seen so far, and they're done well, is they don't really go to that next level. They don't challenge. And I'm not, again, trying to create anxiety for people, but if you're doing a lockdown drill and you've done it 20 times, what are you getting out of it? Let's put in a MERT situation. So you got a lockdown drill and all of a sudden a student goes out and now the MERT team needs to come in and deal with that student during a lockdown. You really want to build your training. You want to slowly increase the stress level without overly taxing people. I was at Northview today. They had their teacher development day, and I gave a presentation on situational awareness, and we talked just that. You know, staff are really stressed out, and they're stressed out because they're not getting enough training. Well, that's not necessarily the district's problem. It's a teacher problem. If you don't feel you're getting enough training, well, you need to seek that training out to some extent. Yes, we can provide more training. Yes, we can provide more opportunities for it. But if you're stressed about how you're going to lock down and hide your kids and all that, well, that's incumbent on you to address that situation. And we talked through that, and it went well. And that we want to empower people, and we want to ensure people, teachers and staff, are not only educated, informed, and training, but they need to be empowered. And why is that important? I can go through a lockdown drill with you and we do really well, but if I throw a curveball in there, add stress to it, things are not going to go well. Teachers, educators, staff need to be adaptable. They need to develop contingencies. They need to think about, okay, if this happens, what am I going to do? If this exit is blocked, what am I going to do? So we really need to build on it.
One of the benefits too of having that system-based approach is that it really helps the first responders. So they know that when they come to Cedar Springs, or they come to Sparta, or they come to Kent City, we're all talking the same language. So we're all on the same page, which makes it easier for them to be on the same page, which helps to streamline response and to help maintain a greater level of calm. And that's one of the real benefits to this approach. That's not yet been, we're in the process of getting there, but once we get there, it's gonna be great.
I do have a question in regards to, because there was a lot of confusion of, and maybe you can't say anything, but so if you're in the classroom, are they still huddling all the kids together or are they spreading them out? That was a huge question. They didn't know what to do.
So if you're in a lockdown situation, you essentially want to get the kids, the students, the adults away from any windows, away from any doors, basically out of lines of sight. As best as possible. If that means you have to separate the kids, that's okay. Particularly if you're dealing with high schoolers, even middle schoolers, they'll be fine. Even the elementary age students, if you have to put 10 kids in a bathroom, put 10 kids in the bathroom and shut the door. So at the end of the day, it's about ensuring their safety, but again, as I just stated, being adaptable and, thinking on the fly. And when I teach this subject matter, I want teachers and administrators to understand that the most important thing they can do is just to make a decision, do something. And what invariably happens in a stressful or chaotic situation, our fine motor skills, our ability to critically think is out the window. We're back to our primitive brain and its survival mode. If you're not mindful in the way you're going to react, you're already behind the 8 ball. So when I tell teachers, instructors, and administrators, hey, you know what? This is the template. This is the way you generally act. But at the end of the day, when you're in an active violence episode, you do what you need to do to ensure your survivability and the survivability of those that you're responsible for. I don't care how you do it, just do it. And if that means putting kids in a bathroom, if that means, okay, there's the exit and there's no place to hide, we're out that door. You do what you need to do. There's always going to be, again, that best practice, because we have to start from somewhere. As Mr. Smith stated, we need to have a system in place. But when we're dealing with catastrophe, a hazard, we need to be adaptable. We need to be continually thinking, okay, what's that next step? What do I have to do now? And move on from there.
Yeah, so you talked about consistency and continuity. I'm sure some districts have different resources, maybe different levels of training. The buildings are set up differently. So when you say consistency, you're talking about a template and a methodology for response, not necessarily a program. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So like your EOPs, just the way they're laid out. They're going to building to building, district to district, they're going to be somewhat different. But if I know, okay, this is the language that we're using, this is the way the emergency preparedness plan is laid out, these are where your maps are going to be, these are where your resources are, just some consistency. That's not only important for the district, but again, as Mr. Smith stated, for law enforcement, for emergency services, it's good to have that in place. So we know what, we're all playing from the same sheet of music, so to speak. But yeah, every district based upon resources is going to be a little bit different. Kansas City is small, but they have 2 SROs. So they're in a different situation than Sparta that has 1 SRO and 1 security officer. So staffing is going to be different. Certainly buildings. There's an elementary school in Kansas City. I don't know how they Will's their teacher or their principal there, and it's like 4 buildings that have been smooshed together. It's the oddest thing I've ever seen. But from a security standpoint, securing that building on 2 busy roadways is difficult. So you've got to navigate that and curtail your emergency preparedness in practical terms based upon physical structure, environment, staffing, resources, funding, all of that.
In terms of best practices, again, kind of, this is new and we're really excited to have you. So
Thank you.
welcome to the district. We're super happy to have you.
I appreciate it.
In terms of level of training, so I have talked to a couple of different districts that are even outside of our region 1, kind of how they operate. And they take some specific days just to train, building evacuation. They simulate threats in the building. And so, what do you see in terms of maybe the next step for our preparedness?
Highly recommend that. And I am very attuned to the limited days that these types of trainings can occur. But it starts with, as I mentioned earlier, the tabletop exercise that we did here last month. It starts with that. It starts with just staff meetings and bringing up a component of safety at every staff meeting. Ensuring that there's clear communication as far as what the expectations are. So training should be built upon. We shouldn't jump right into an all-day drill when nobody knows or has any idea what that even means or how we even conduct that. So, for example, we're putting together a reunification site region-wide. We'll start with just tabletopping it. We'll get those that are on the team together, let them know what their roles and responsibilities are, bring them to the site of the reunification, do a walkthrough. And then the next exercise will be, okay, we'll bring a small group of students through. We're going to reunify those student role players with parent role players, reunify, and then build on it so it's larger and larger. Training should be done, if practical, if able, to do it do it in a day or a week, get it all together, get it compressed in, because you want to get into that sort of that training mindset. So if it's, the subject matter is, tornadoes or fires or evacuation, focus in on that. If you do the training all at one time, again, your staff is going to be much more indoctrinated into that concept, the safety and security concept. And again, it's difficult. It really is. It's difficult.
Perfect. We look forward to the benefits of increased security for our kids. So thank you for your investment with us.
And again, I'm a resource. Any questions, concerns, something you'd like to see, something that isn't being done. I've worked certainly with Mr. Smith, the principals of all the buildings, and we'll do our best to ensure that your district is safe as it possibly can be. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And as time is a valuable resource, you are welcome to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can depart as well, so.
We won't be offended. Oh, all right, moving on to discussion item D, 2024 summer tax resolution and second read, and it's on traction, and Scott's presenting.
Yeah, so thank you. This is just the same resolution that we ask for your support on an annual basis. The draft resolution provided by True Law, very straightforward, no surprises, no changes from past resolutions. Okay.
All right. Moving on, section 21F, virtual learning day resolution, second read.
So the first artifact linked into board book is a revised memo that's dated the 23rd today, October 23rd. Down at the bottom, you'll see language that I'm proposing that you consider for a resolution. As you can see, it's simply stated, if needed, Cedar Springs Public Schools will exercise its option to provide instruction virtually for not more than 15 days for any of the following: emergency closures, student testing days, and professional development, and in accordance with section 21F subsection 14 of PA 103 for 2023. So really, this just gives us some leeway and flexibility if needed to accommodate some unique testing schedules that we may encounter at the high school, or if there are other situations that come up that we're faced with over the course of the year. By passing this resolution, it just gives us the freedom to be able to exercise a remote learning option in the event that in-person learning isn't possible at a given building during a period of time, again, for those reasons listed. I don't see this as something we would go to unless it wasn't something really out of the ordinary, other than, testing at the high school. I can maybe see us taking advantage of that just to help manage the flow of those mass testing days that we encounter in the springtime. So it doesn't mean we will, it just means we can.
Any questions? Different, but okay, that's on for action. All right, moving on, the National School Board Association Advocacy Institute Conference.
So this is a conference that Misty went to a couple years ago in Washington DC. The Kent County ISD, their school board actually has scholarships available for local district membership. The scholarship pays for the cost of the conference. The district then would pick up your travel expenses. If any of you were interested in attending that National School Board conference or an advocacy conference, I didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about your experience.
Well, it got cut because of COVID.
Oh, got it.
Remember, like, it was all set to go and everything, and then all of a sudden we had to, yeah. It was like 2 weeks before, because of COVID,
Got it.
that,
I don't remember.
I
Well,
think
there's a
it's
lot
very
going on.
disappointing.
COVID fog.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was so sad, cause it was like, I got approved and everything, and then it was just, yeah, cause in January, that's when, I don't even understand, yeah, and it was like, a lot of the classes were canceled, and then it was just, some of them could be virtual or not, so it's like, why fly out and to watch, and then you sit in a hotel room
Got it.
because of COVID.
So I could speak to years past, before
Yeah.
COVID, where I remember Joe and used to do the Washington DC trips a lot, and he always had good things to say about it as far as being able to meet with representatives, going through that process. Essentially, you have a year of the people representing us out in DC. So that's something good. And then, yeah, if there's classes associated with it, or just seeing the process in general is always a good thing to experience and go through. So that's all I know. I've never been.
I went for I was the 2016 Lung Force Hero, so I met with our legislators and all of that stuff for, for the American Lung Association, and it's really cool being in those buildings with the reps and then the senators and all that stuff. It's pretty, I think it's definitely something we should do.
Yeah.
I would go again, but.
What are the dates, Scott?
It's January 28, 29, and 30. So I received this from the ISD on the 10th, so right after our last meeting. So the upside is they pay for your scholarship to attend the conference. The downside is the deadline for application is Wednesday, the 25th. So if you're interested, I mean, all 7 of you can apply. We can, as
I
many
think it's
people.
the 3rd, November 3rd.
That's when the Mandy's got listed that the 25th is the deadline
Oh, okay.
for submission of the application. And then the 3rd is when they'll notify the recipients of the scholarship.
Oh, okay.
So this application is just for the scholarship. It's not
Correct.
necessarily to, if we don't get the scholarship, we can still.
Correct, yeah, if you don't get the scholarship, we can still go. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And they pay for the conference fee, and then the school board, our school board then takes care of the rest.
And if multiple people want to go, we can pay for multiple people, whether you get the scholarship or not. So, but we probably want to book sooner versus later.
When did you say we have to apply for the scholarship by Wednesday?
It's due, the scholarships are due Wednesday, the 25th. And it's a very simple scholarship or very simple application. It's just name and then give a brief summary as to why you're interested in attending the conference.
And Mandy Level, she gets back to you pretty quick, but I mean, just.
So will they submit that themselves or through your bar?
They can submit it just within the link.
Okay.
They can jump right in and
That's definitely-
use that link to go.
Perfect.
There's a place to sign it and everything. And if you run into troubles, let me know.
Right. We have. Alrighty, moving on, Curriculum Associates iReady Service Agreement Renewal.
So this is one of those items. So I read a suite of services that we use in classrooms across the district. That's an annual fee that we have to pay. It does exceed the threshold, the purchasing threshold in the board policy manual. And so therefore it's a threshold that you would have to, we're asking you to approve. It's very similar to Power School, some of those other services that we buy. There's really no competitive bid process for a unique resource such as that, or in this situation, such as this one. So we are asking for approval this evening as well. Oftentimes when you transition key members of the team, you realize, oh wow, I thought this had been taken care of back in July and it hadn't. And so this is one of those things where action sooner versus later would be better for continuity of service. But if we get in a pickle, I'm sure that we can convince them that we need a couple of days or weeks, if you have any questions.
I just have one question about, have we checked with the teachers to see if this is something that is helpful for them? Is it working? I just have what my kids say and they don't like it at all.
Yeah.
And they think that it's not useful to them at all. So I'm wondering if the teachers have been asked, we're paying all this money for this thing. Is it useful for you in the classroom? Are we asking those questions?
I mean, it's the cornerstone of our data monitoring, our progress monitoring work.
Okay.
I'm sure that we could find individual teachers who don't see it as game changing for their world. But in the big picture, it's essential for us to be able to monitor the growth of our students, to make sure that our teaching practices are on track, our supports are in place as needed. So it's a critical piece of the infrastructure for the work that we're doing. Not everyone may agree with that, but I can certainly say that from my perspective, you know, when I first started in 2018, this was a relatively new tool and a new resource, and there was a significant amount of opposition to utilizing it on a regular basis. The degree to which opposition is voiced is shrinking significantly, and it's just, data is a tool and a resource, and it's not necessarily a natural tool to hold on to. I was trying to differentiate with Sarah this weekend the difference between a driver that drives screws and those types of tools and a drill. Two completely different tools. They look really similar, but they're really different tools with different purposes. And this is one of those tools that's really critical.
And I'm not questioning,
Yeah.
I'm coming from, my kids are all voracious readers and have
Yeah.
been since they were really young, so that this is not so much something that was useful to them, but
Yeah.
if it's helpful for everybody else, great.
The neat thing is that it's important to get several different viewpoints of a student's progress. Sometimes all of those vantage points are all aligned and it's very clear this is what has to happen. But there are times when there may be some variations between, you know, whether it's a cadence or iReady or even what the teachers are seeing in the classroom. And so, you know, when there's uniformity in data and results, then it's great. But sometimes when there's not, when there are variances, that also gives us some compelling information to move forward with a better strategy. So to me, it's always better to have multiple sources of data than it is to just have one, to get a more holistic approach of how students and how our teachers are doing, how our curriculum is doing to support the learning. So yeah, it really does give us a big picture of vantage point.
Good questions. Does this help with a state requirement? I feel like I remember
Like the third grade reading law for
a
young
long time
kids.
back. I don't know if it was that, or is this the program that we need to use for whatever?
Yep, so the third grade reading law is gone.
Okay, good.
That was pulled off the books. I know that we use this data for state reporting for growth. I honestly don't know to what degree things are required now, because some of those requirements have changed over time.
And I'm remembering years ago. so
Yeah, I
it's
think
yeah.
it was
one of those
presented, I
things.
remember it in that framework,
Yeah,
was third grade reading off, but we
Yeah.
needed something in this, like, one of three things.
Yeah.
or- Yeah,
And that goes to my next question. Is there another product, another tool, if you will, that is similar or comparable that, might have less complaints or might be easier to use or, function better and how we as a district operate? Just curious.
I mean, there are different products out there. I can have Jen speak to that at the November meeting, if that would be helpful. I do know that it's important to maintain some consistency, from a systems perspective. But yeah, that's definitely something we can kind of consider.
Is this renewal for 1 year or is it a multi-year renewal?
It is a 1-year renewal, I believe. It's an annual fee.
So if we decide to take action on that, we could renew that while we investigate other options for out years.
Correct, yeah.
And when we brought iReady on too, it was the, getting it up and going, and there was that period of time, and so
Sure.
with, I'm not advocating for it or against it, but with every change, there's that period of learning loss.
For
Yeah.
sure. That's for sure.
And I wasn't advocating for getting
Oh,
rid of
no,
it
no,
either. I
right.
was just wondering if we could ask the question.
Right. Yeah.
but Shannon, for the record, my kids don't like it either.
I haven't had a kid that likes it. But that's the kid's perspective.
Right, it's
It's helpful for the teacher and
Right.
how,
Yeah.
like, pass out, gather and like that.
The media class can work on that.
And other products might be different, but usually skill assessment's not comfortable. with
Yeah.
that. Well,
Right.
That's the thing.
I like
Right.
reading it as a
Right.
parent, seeing, but.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, when I'm at a conference and they show me the data from iReady, it's helpful. It's me as a parent to gauge where my kids are at. But again, that's not the only tool that they're
Right.
showing me, so.
Great, thank you. All right, moving forward, discussion item H, OK conference resolution update.
So in board pack, you have 2 artifacts. The first artifact is just the letter that we signed and submitted. You approved it as a resolution on October 9. Heidi and Tracy signed it. I submitted it on October 10. That prompted the OK conference to send out a ballot to the 48 member schools. Those ballots have been received and the results were reported out early this afternoon. So of the 48 member schools that were that voted on our request to leave the conference at the end of the school year, 13 districts voted in favor of the question, and 35 districts voted against our request to leave the conference at the end of the school year. If we'd have flipped it, it would have almost been the 75% that we needed to be granted release from the district at the end of the school year. So that really leaves us leaves you in a position. We really have 3 options at this point. Option 1 is to essentially move forward as a member of the OK conference without any intention or without any expression of Cedar Springs Public Schools looking to leave the conference at any time in the near future. A second option would be to draft another resolution notifying the conference of our intent to leave the OK conference at the conclusion of next season. So we would stay in the conference for the remainder of the 23-24 school year. We would stay in the conference for the 24-25 school year, and then we would exit the conference starting in the fall of 25 into 2026. The bylaws of the conference state that if a member district notifies the conference of their intent to leave by June 30 of a given calendar year, they have to wait until the following June 30 before that request to leave can actually be accepted. So you need 2 June 30s on the rotation. So if we let them know by June 29, 2024, June 30, 2024 is our first June 30, June 30, 2025 is our second June 30, July 1, 2025, we're free and clear. We've followed all of the bylaws of the conference, and we are free to do whatever we, whatever we elect to do as a district. So that's the second option. So that's kind of the play by the rules option.
So that's like a 2-year notice.
It's for us, it's a 1.5 years.
Okay, but
So it's the remainder of this year, unless you don't act on that until June 29.
Okay.
Then it's a 1 year, 1 day notice,
Okay.
basically. Yeah, so that's the kind of the play by the rules option. The third option is to acknowledge the vote, but if the Board of Education feels that it's still the right thing for us to do, we can notify the conference at any time, letting them know of our intention to leave the conference. It just wouldn't necessarily be by following the bylaws. And so that's what the second artifact that is included in board book tonight. The second letter simply changes. It's very similar to the letter that you passed in October 9. There are a couple variations on it, but it's simply stating that please, we're asking the conference to recognize this letter as our official notification of intent to withdraw from the OK conference at the conclusion of the 23-24 school year. I did add a third reason in terms of why. So initially we had listed the consistency of opponents as being reason number 1. We listed the mileage traveled within the conference alignment as reason number 2. Reason number 3 that I listed in our letter, that the letter draft that you have in front of you, is really a lack of local influence over the governing processes of the conference. And that's been one of the things that I've heard from many individuals, coaches, administrators, board members, that why is it that districts that we don't even play, why can they have such a powerful voice over controlling the experience of our student athletes? And so really it's for you to discuss. I do have another meeting with the other 6 superintendents of the 7 districts who requested to leave the conference. We're meeting tomorrow midday. The OK conference has asked that we give them notice by Friday of this week what our intent is for next year, because they want to get moving with their scheduling. I said respectfully, that's not how my board works. Typically, we like to take big ticket items like this and give board members at least, a window of time of it's introduced in one meeting, they act on it the second meeting. So don't feel any pressure whatsoever. If we need time to think, that's phenomenal. But if you're comfortable with taking a step, that's okay too. We're going to be fine. There are enough schools out there that will still schedule us. I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about getting officials, all of those things that are kind of worrisome moments when you're making a big change. Are we gonna be ostracized? Are we gonna, you know, is the district's gonna say, no, they don't wanna play us? No, because their kids need games too. And so, you know, I'm comfortable moving forward with any direction. I have proposed kind of a concept to Dave Feenstra, who's the commissioner of the OK Conference. I've not yet shared it. It's just it's a concept. It's like John Witkowski's position. But the concept would be for the OK Conference to shift away from its position as a governing board, and shift into a new position of really being more of a collaborative board, maybe taking more of a position like an ISD does, where the ISD supports local districts. It doesn't control the local districts. It's not the enforcing agent for local districts. But if the OK Conference assumed this position as, you know, their job is to promote athletics within the West Michigan community. Their job is to give us opportunities to collaborate with one another as districts. Their job is to provide great opportunities for our students. Maybe we can gain some purchasing power on things if we're buying in a larger group. But then rather than being this collection of 48 schools, my concept would be that they are that's the umbrella, but then we define 6 or 7 different conferences within that OK Conference umbrella. The difference is that the conference, a committee of the conference doesn't tell districts who they're in conference alignment with. The 48 districts they'd have to figure it out. They would have to do what we did. And it would be as simple as, you know, sending out a survey to each member district saying, hey, give us 12 teams that you'd be good playing, and rank those teams from 1 to 12. And I can't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get your top 8, but I can guarantee that you're going to get, you know, 3 out of your top 6, and you're going to get 8 out of your top 12. You know, there's a way to do this, and then that would just be your conference. We wouldn't go through this realignment process anymore. Each individual conference would have their own bylaws. Each individual conference would be the governing body for the member schools in that conference. So members in Conference A wouldn't have any say over the rules that govern Conference C. Conference C would have their own set of governing rules. And the changes would take place if your enrollment went up or your enrollment went down. You know, if we were all individual conferences and Misty she didn't want to be in her conference anymore, then Misty could tell her conference members, hey, I'm going to step out. Well, now that conference has an opening. So any team from any of your conferences could say, oh, I'm really attracted. That's a good looking conference. It meets some geographic needs that we have. It's better alignment with our enrollment. So I'm going to apply to be in Misty's division or in Misty's conference, taking her spot because she's vacated her position. She may go join another conference. She may decide to go independent. She may, you know, be doing something else, but there's an opening now in her conference that any other member school could apply for. The people in that conference, the districts in that conference, would approve or not approve if a district wanted to come in. None of us would have a say over what was happening there. And there might be an occasion where we've got a district that just doesn't fit really well in any of the conferences. Well, they could still participate as an independent. You know, Notre Dame is an independent. They are not in a conference, but they compete, you know, at the college level. So we could have independent districts within the OK Conference as well. So there are probably 12 people on the planet that have heard that concept now. So you're 7 of the 12. Well, you're 10 of the, maybe it's 14. But anyway, that's another way to look at it. So it doesn't have to be this, nope, it's the way it's always been, and that's the only way it can be. So that was a bird walk. But it's really up to you in terms of what direction you want to go. But either way, we're gonna be okay.
Just out of curiosity, was it a yes or no on the ballot, or did they elaborate, like, why, like?
No, yes, sir.
voted no?
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I have a couple questions. They're both hypothetically. Hypothetically, we decide to not follow the bylaws and just we're out at the end of this year. I guess the first hypothetical, I guess that's the hypothetical I'm working with. A, what are the repercussions of not following bylaws, if any? And B, you kind of already touched on this, but if none of the rest of the districts that we were gonna go with, if none of them decide to do the same, they decide to wait it out or whatever, who do we then? You said we would find people to play, but who?
Yeah, so we went, if we said we were gonna withdraw anyway. And the other 6 districts decided they were gonna stay. Well, first, we would make sure that we knew what everyone else was going to do. But B, we'd be an independent. And we would just pick up games that way and we'd wait a year. And then join a group at that point in time. So we'd still be able to have, we still have competitions. Other districts will still, they'll need games too. So
How
we
would
would
that
be
affect us going to like? If we made it to.
Playoffs or something?
Yeah, so the MHSA.
Go sports, I don't.
Yeah, no, that's such a great question. So the Michigan High School Athletic Association, that's the governing body that runs all of the postseason tournaments.
Okay.
And so it would not have any influence whatsoever on postseason play. We'd still have a berth based on enrollment in volleyball tournaments, in
That's
postseason.
scheduled all separate from the
Okay,
conference.
gotcha.
We just wouldn't have any, all conference players, or we could name our own all conference players. Our whole team could be all. conference players.
They're not even meeting anymore. I mean, that's done all different. I mean, so even that, though, that's lost some of its nuance, how those people are even chosen.
And
Well,
repercussions if we break the bylaws? Are there any?
I mean, you strive to follow the rules.
So no then?
But there's no, yeah, no, yeah, it's really, it's,
They'll yell shame at us?
yeah.
Well, this stuff has been talked about for years.
Yeah.
It's only now come to a vote, and it's obvious the vote might not, there still might need to be action taken, because this is not new, where people have asked and wanted to shift things around, and it's been a brick wall, quite honestly, from what I've heard.
Yeah, there won't be any fines, there's no penalties. Other than people maybe have, would see the districts who left as just, maybe they see them as they might scrunch their nose at them, but, Kent City left the OK Conference. Does anyone care about Kent City? We still love Kent City.
Doing fine. Yeah.
They're still a great district. Belding announced they were leaving the OK Conference, joining another conference. The other conference didn't accept them, so now Belding is still in the OK Conference. So, yeah, memories are short.
So I've got 2 additional questions. You asked 2 of the questions I was gonna ask, so we
Oh,
must be
perfect.
right on the same wavelength there, but the other question was, I guess, in your assessment of this, Scott, what is the best option for our kids, number 1? And the second question is, out of these 3 options, which option do you recommend?
So, those are great questions. The best option is that proposal that I pitched. I think that's really got some legs. But I've got to get the right people who will listen to it. But that way, we could be our group of 7, we could add 1 more. And then other districts could do that same thing and find a place for them to fit as well. To me, that's the best option. I think there's momentum now. There's value in being a group. So I don't know that I would recommend us going rogue and being the only one. But if the other 6 schools are in alignment and they all feel that this is an okay time to go, this is an okay time for us to go to. So that would be my recommendation. If those other districts are still ready to move forward, that would be my recommendation for you as well. The concerns that were voiced are not my concerns. I'm not worried about getting contests. I'm not worried about getting officials. Other teams will be more than willing to play us. Forest Hills, they're on board. Northview, they voted yes. We will be fine. We'll get games and we'll get officials.
I know there are a lot of parents who were really excited to hear that we were gonna get out of the OK conference because they feel and their children feel like we have a disadvantage when we play. We don't have the opportunities that bigger schools have to go out and bring kids from other schools that are really good at a certain sport and keep them at our school. Like, we don't have that opportunity. And I feel like we would be letting down those students and those parents if we didn't pull out. So, and my child plays sports and I feel the exact same way as the other parents. And I really have never liked the OK conference. And I was super psyched when I wasn't here and I was sick that everyone voted yes to get out, because that would have been my vote if I was here. So that's where I stayed. Like, I would like to just get out of it. And I know there's a ton of parents who would applaud if we did.
I just think about your recommendation that you pitched last time. We talked about it, and like, we agreed as a board that sounded like the best path for our students. Obviously honoring bylaws is important. We want to make sure that we're, honoring those types of agreements, but at the same time, if we think that that's a superior experience for our students to say, we're going to wait 2 years or 2.5 years or however long that is to give our students a better experience, I feel like it would be amiss. So as much as I would like to do option number 2, if we feel like it's better and if those other schools go along with it and that's the direction, I would be in favor of going option 3.
So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So for it to be sure the other school is on board. Or what, do we need to vote tonight so to talk to them, but you don't turn in the letter?
Not only that, but you had talked about your vision of, making it murder. Do we need to wait until that plays out a little bit, or?
Yeah. So again, we control the timeline. No one else is controlling our timeline. To me, it would be good to know where you stood, so that when I go into my meeting tomorrow, I can share that our board is supported if we're still whole as a group. And our board would also be comfortable if needed, if as a group, we don't feel that 2024 is the right timeline to get out. 2025 is a better timeline to get out. It gives us more time to transition and get everything in order that we need to get in order as far as bylaws and those types of things. I've been in this from the beginning in terms of really finding power in the voice of the group. So when it was one school, I wasn't really on board. I never led in the conversation, follow me. But once there was a critical mass of districts that were on board, and that made a lot of sense for our student athletes and our parents and our programs, then I was like, yeah, okay, that makes great sense. Let's go. So I think just getting direction from you would be helpful. We don't have to take any action tonight. We can take official action in our next meeting on November 13th. Is it? Yeah.
I will say I support leaving the OK conference. So
I support leaving, and I am concerned at the large amount of notice that they've asked, the one asked to leave, that was denied. I think bylaws are not contractually, that's not doing our family service, so.
Yeah, I would be comfortable voting same thing.
Yeah, and I think whatever's best for the kids and whatever timeline, if we don't have critical mass and you don't feel like it's the right time, I'm gonna trust your judgment on that. If you feel like we've got critical mass and the timing is now, I'm okay supporting 3, so 2 or 3, I could be supportive of. I think you're watching out for the district's best interest there, so I'd support 2 or 3.
Do you need us to vote on something for you to be able to take it, to talk to them tomorrow?
No, I
or
think
we-
just this conversation is
Okay.
healthy. And it's not locking us down. We may get some more information in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks that would clarify some things either way for us.
I think that's the hard thing that I'm wrestling with right now is what do we actually know now? One, and, you know, I don't wanna lock us in to, okay, we're willing to get out, this is what we voted on.
We
let's
wanna be
run
sure.
through that.
Right.
So I'd rather
Yeah.
Then we're the only ones.
Give us a shot at Notre Dame.
give you a little to talk through and to assess, you know, who's actually leaving, make sure that you know, the 6 or 7 are on board and.
But there'll be a lot of,
Yeah,
the alliance.
yeah,
Right.
so, and even play out your vision option of, you know, can we stay with the okay and make this work? Which, it's hopeful, but, you know.
But what's the timeline?
Yeah,
that's
that's what I was
what
gonna say. It sounds like if you have 35 people voting no,
don't-
it's not gonna be a quick timeline.
No,
Certainly
and I
not
don't
for
see a quick
next.
turnover with
And
it. Your idea's great, so in like 2028, we'll try and make that effect.
Right,
Like,
The
I
bigger
think
the
they're
kids, the
asking us
slower
for
the
almost
turn.
2 years of sticking
Right.
around.
and it's consistent like,
And they may eventually come around to his vision and maybe then we can look at joining back in. Unless they go, no, you broke the bylaws.
Yeah, I guess that would be the only thing, like, that would be the only hard no, if we left. And then in 3 years, we wanted to come back. My guess is they would say, no, thank you.
You never know.
Right?
You never know.
Right. It's all speculation. And with the amount of turnover in positions, people are gonna forget.
Well, and what if other schools see what we're doing and then eventually they get to the spot that we're at and they're like, hey, this kind of is unfair for our kids. They can't even move up a division. Because they're playing against really tough teams, like they're going nowhere. And then they decide, I wanna do what these guys are doing. You just never know.
So does that give you enough
It does, yeah.
direction?
And not knowing the bylaws, Scott, I don't know how familiar you are, I mean, they could obviously, without a vote, elect to let us out, right? Just the conference could choose to let us out without the vote, or it has to be voted on.
They would have, there is a specific bylaw that guides exiting the conference.
Okay.
And that's what we're trying to follow.
Okay.
Or that's what we try to follow. That's the 2 June 30th notification.
So one additional wondering, I guess, is with the commissioner saying we want your decision by Friday. If they were used to people following the bylaws, they would just assume we were waiting 2 years, not, here's the official bylaws, now what do you think you're gonna do? Because that follow-up question makes it feel like it's common practice to not follow the bylaws, you know what I'm saying? So
it's expected.
it's expected to leave anyway, so if that's the case, and again, not just reading between the lines and not knowing the space, I would assume there's not too hard of feelings if there's a follow-up question. Because if there was no follow-up question about what you're truly gonna do, and then we said we were leaving, I would assume there'd be more hard feelings. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to read the language here. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
This is fun.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so you got what you need.
I do,
You
yeah,
got the
thank
notes.
you.
Okay.
Thank
Alright. Thank you, everybody, for your input. All righty, bond construction update.
So there are 2 items listed. One is the construction change orders from at Red Hawk that I had some question about, because I wasn't clear if we approved those two change orders. I knew that we approved the change order for trails. It's listed in the minutes that they were approved as listed. But then I didn't recall if we wanted a little bit more time to discuss the change order, just in terms of the two items at Red Hawk. So I apologize for that little bit of murkiness.
I was thinking we approved them as presented, but I could be mistaken.
I was thinking.
Yeah,
so too.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I think it's probably good.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think we did.
beautiful, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's what the minutes show, but I just want to make sure that we were in good shape. Okay, the second piece, it's crazy to think that we're starting the planning on phase 3 of our program. So phase 1 obviously was the initial work at the high school, the parking and infrastructure work at the middle school, work at trails, work at View, work at Red Hawk. Phase 2 now is the work that's really focused in at Beach, and that's going to be a revolutionary change. Phase 3 now is going back and picking up those last remaining promises of the work at the high school. So if you recall, we were looking at a final package of projects at the high school that would help address a space for our competitive cheer team, to be able to call home and to have a space for them to do practicing, a space for our wrestlers to be able to call home that was a good solid space for them, to increase the capacity of our physical space for weightlifting, to be able to enhance that opportunity for fitness and cardiovascular and strength training for our students at the high school. And then the other piece was developing that concept of a school retail space that would be open and available for guests and members of the public, but really run from marketing and retail program for our students as part of a high school class. And all of those kind of activities are taking place at the far east end of the district. So we had our first meeting last week where we were just drawing some big like shapes on the map to show kind of where spaces are going. And I made it clear, but the team, Triangle, does an outstanding job of keeping us on budget. But I reminded the team that we are gonna have all straight lines, no curves, no arcs, no ovals. We are going all straight,
You know what that means, right?
90 degree,
Oh, you
If
did
possible.
specify 90 degrees?
I
You
did.
can do angles.
90 degrees is
Okay, good.
just because curves are cool, but they look spiffy, but they are more expensive as are angles. So I thought it was a great, great conversation. Mr. Simmons is giggling over there. He had a great idea for this arch, this long curved window wall for our weight programming, and I had to burst the bubble early on very directly by saying boxes only, no curves. Yeah, but it was a good meeting. We're getting the ball started, getting the ball rolling, and it's gonna be kind of fun to see where that goes. But we're really keenly aware of budget, so it's gonna be interesting to see how all the pieces fit into place.
So does that mean the Ox Gym itself is out with the secondary gym?
So, Ox Gym is a word that,
Second gym.
yeah, I mean, we've got second gyms all over campus. We've got a second gym at Cedar View. We've got a second gym at Red Hawk. We've got a second gym at Beach. So really, it's more of the initial concept was we want a space for cheer, we want a space for wrestling. We want that space to be as fluid and flexible as possible, so that we can get as much return on the investment as we can. Mr. Simmons had some great ideas about, the space for cheer would also be really well suited for dance classes during the day, for yoga, for different types of fitness experiences. During the day, that could also serve after school, groups really, really well also, so.
So
Yeah.
going with Shannon's theory, my question, my wonder is, so when you're having these meetings, like, do the varsity coaches get invited to these, or is there staff input?
They
Like
will
that are
eventually, but
Living the
yeah.
practice schedules and the ideas,
they will eventually, but we can only do so much.
right?
So we've got to first narrow the scope of the project a little bit. And then we'll bring people in to start getting some details as to how we can best utilize the spaces.
And my other wonder is, do we want to label those things with those specific sports? Or do you want to label it something more generic if things change? Just an idea.
Right, so right now, we're just creating spaces. So, it's not big, like oval shapes on the map, it's squares with sharp right angled corners on the map.
No wavy spaces.
No wavy lines. But really, that was where the conversation kept going, like, we're just creating spaces. We're not creating a competitive cheer room, we're not creating a wrestling room, we're not creating a fitness room, we're creating some spaces. We're gonna maximize the square footage, and then from there, create as much fluidity and flexibility as possible to get the most out of those spaces as we can.
And my concern is in the past, we did use a walking track or something in the gym. It was reported, I wasn't on the board at that time, it was a minimal amount of people that had that voice. And a lot of people since then really felt bad. So that was my bigger voice point.
Yeah, so respectfully, you don't ask questions that you don't want to hear the answer to. And we could ask questions and the responses would likely be to construct a $30 million multi-fitness, multi-sport space, and we just can't,
Right.
we
But I
can't do
think
that.
before it's just, this is it, that was my question.
Yeah.
So, there you
But
have it.
we're gonna first create the boundaries in which people can start doing some sketching.
I have a very poorly timed question in that. So parking at the high school, many years ago, the board talked about, we need more parking, and they were like, we're doing more parking, and I think they ended up with like 2 more parking spots. And now going, and I'm just, it's poorly timed because I realize we've already planned all the stuff we're gonna do. But at the same time, when I go to concerts or football games, it's clear we have a huge parking problem outside of school hours. I assume that all the teachers and students have places to park that need them. Is that something that we will ever be able to address? Is that on anybody's radar?
Yeah, so,
I realize
it's
should
on
come
the
up a long
radar,
time ago.
but it's not the greatest priority. We have parking, but people will just have to walk. So I know that on some event nights when we've hosted larger events at the stadium, we've offered shuttle parking from Cedar View, from Cedar Trails, so that we can maybe address some of those unique one-off challenges with some different solutions versus pouring critical infrastructure dollars into solutions for things that happen maybe 3 or 4 nights a year.
And maybe it's a communication thing too, then, because I never knew we had any sort of shuttle parking.
Yeah.
In the, was it 6 years now that my kids have been going to the high school?
Yeah.
So maybe it's a communication where you let people know that, hey, obviously, we're not all gonna fit here, but there's shuttle parking available.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe there are signs and I just never read them because
Yeah.
people don't read signs.
Parking, storage, seats in an auditorium, you can always get bigger. And that's like, people really wanna make it as big as we can, but at some point in time, you've gotta be mindful of what's the biggest return on the investment of those construction dollars.
It was a big disappointment though, when we pushed for more parking, we got like 2 parking spots in a big hill. You know, like what happened in the communication, but you weren't here for that, so that's not.
I will say that to the parking thing, you know, I've been to a lot of other districts that are parkers than we are.
That's fair.
And I do think that we have a lot of space, especially with Bolton Drive that can be utilized. All of our buildings are on one campus, and it's great because we can utilize a lot of those parking lots to, like you said, shuttle people or have people walk. So we are set up pretty well for parking. It's just tough because, yeah, you don't want the inconvenience of having to park a mile away.
Right. Well, and even beyond inconvenience, there's some people that can't. They can't
Yep.
walk a mile even if they don't have handicap
Mhm.
parking spaces. Yeah.
I sort of wondering, Scott, about the thinking here. Do we, and I know we're limited on space. You always want, I'd love to hear more about the multi-discipline $30 million. I know we can't do it, but we did have a very wise person who may be in the audience with us tonight talk about the very real connection between mental health and academic performance and overall wellness and physical fitness and the whole package in terms of coming around our students. Do we have the space, or is that thinking being incorporated into this level 3 plan?
It is for sure. And just strategically in terms of where do we place that? You know, where we place that area. You know, so we even had a crazy thought, you know, when we originally planned back in 2019 for that bond project at the high school, our enrollment was doing this, and we added 12 classrooms. Well, our enrollment's not doing this. Our enrollment right now is doing this. So we have extra classrooms at the high school. So we even said, okay, what if we use some of those front 4 classrooms differently? What else could go in those spaces that would then in turn open up some other room for, you know, larger cardiovascular, cardio fitness areas. So we're really trying to think outside the box. No solution or nothing's off the table as long as the lines are straight and the corners are 90 degrees.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons, for sharing that data with us too.
Question about that.
No. Sorry.
They're gonna start using square pencils.
If we had unlimited funds, it would be a different question.
Windows could be curved.
You can take straight windows and begin to segment them in your. Anyway.
Oh, did you hear?
One question I have, it deals with curves, and I just wondered if the disc golf course was a part of phase 3.
Ooh,
Oh.
it's not yet.
Yeah.
But we don't have to wait till phase 3 to do a disc golf course. So, but conversations around a golf simulator and a tennis space, indoor hitting ball for tennis, those are both parts of the conversation. So incorporating some different types of things for students.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, that brings us to the public comment portion of our meeting. Do we have anyone that would like to address the board for their 3 minutes? Don't see anyone. Going once, going twice. Public comment is hereby closed. Moving on to our action items for tonight's meeting. Here we go. Before us, we have the 8th grade East Coast trip request. I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Having none, Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderhyde,
Yes.
Trustee Patton,
Yes.
Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carries. National Future Farmers of America FFA Convention Expo trip, I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Having none. Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
trustee Patton,
Yes.
trustee Vanderhyde.
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore.
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carries. Section 21F Virtual Learning Day Resolution, I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Having none. Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
trustee Patton,
Yes.
trustee Vanderhyde.
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore.
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carries. Action item D, Curriculum Associates iReady Service Agreement Renewal. Would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Having none, Vice President, backwards. Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
trustee Patton.
Yes.
Trustee Vanderhyde,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore.
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carries. The last action item is the 2024 Summer Tax Resolution. I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Having none, Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderhyde.
Yes.
Trustee Patton.
Yes.
Trustee Bowser.
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carries. Brings us to the communication portion of tonight's meeting, and for the Board of Education, I have no outstanding communication that you have not received. We are up to date on everything that we've received as a board. I would defer to Superintendent Smith.
No, yeah, thank you. No outside communication, from me either.
More even. And for planning, we have, the social items in board book that are upcoming for your calendars. And our next board meeting is November 13th with a 6:45 start. And with that, at 8:02, we will stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
You're very welcome, sir.